What's up, fam? Welcome to our home. I am Dr. D. This is my beautiful wife,
Shantae.
and we are the Smiths. This is Richer or Poor Marriage Podcast, where we are contributing to the health and wealth of marriages. So tonight we have something special for you. We decided to go live. We are talking all things marriage. Are you ready for that,
I'm
sweetie?
ready.
You ready for sweet?
I'm ready.
You ready? You sure? Look
I'm
how she
sure.
looking at me. See, y'all get the realness tonight. Y'all get them side eyes, those side looks,
I'm ready. Let's
all that good
go.
stuff.
Let's go. We talking all things married. This is our first time doing a richer or poor live Q&A. So we are excited. There have been a number of questions that have been sent to us. And guess what? We are going to answer those questions for you tonight. If you did not submit your questions, listen, put it in the comment and we will try to answer your question. So we are ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
DJ, drop that beat.
All right.
All right, sweetie, what's up? What you got?
All right. So we got some messages. We got some questions uh, about all things marriage, right? And we wanted to do this Q&A because we know that there are uh marriages that are not the same. All marriages are different, right? All marriages are different. Each person in a marriage have a different perspective of what marriage is, what marriage look like. So we thought that it would be a great opportunity to give you the opportunity to give us some questions, and we would try to answer them the best way that we know how. And for those that don't know us, Damon and myself, we have been married for 22 years. So this, we're going into our 23rd year.
Yes, we are. Well, we're not going into it. We already in it.
We're not in it.
We in it. We celebrated 22 years.
Yeah, 22. I said
We
23.
we celebrated 22 years of marriage in August.
Mm.
So now we are in our 23rd year. We will celebrate 23 years next August, but we're in the 23rd
Okay, we're
year.
in the 23rd year.
See?
We're in it. He has spoken. We are in it.
There you
We
go.
are in it. And listen, we're going to try to answer these questions uh as quickly as possible, and prayerfully we'll be able to get uh your answer, your question answered the way you would like it answered, or it may not be the way you wanted to answer, but we gonna give it to you. All right, so you want to choose the first question?
Yeah. Yep. I want to choose the first question because
Just, you can pick some. No, go ahead, you wanted to pick.
this is for you.
It's not for me.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not. Give it to me. How is it for me?
Exactly. That's why I was gonna pick it up with. All right.
No, this not. It's no. I just no. Okay, just pick a question. Pick a question.
Okay.
You gonna pick a question?
Sure. You go ahead and get started. That's how we gonna do tonight.
All right. So let me just go with the question. So we're not doing this in no random order. We're just,
It is random.
I mean, no particular order.
There you
Thank you. See how he keep me on track, y'all? So the first question is, what advice can you give when waiting on the manifestation of breakthrough in your relationship? So that is the question. And so you want me to answer first? So I would my answer to that question would be to first of all continue to trust God, right? So I believe that in all marriages we are all waiting for something to manifest, right? We're all waiting for something to manifest. Your breakthrough may be something different than somebody else, but it is a breakthrough, right? Your breakthrough um may be a breakthrough in your finances, a breakthrough in um intimacy. Can that be a breakthrough?
If it's lacking,
See, there you have it. But yeah, so I would say continue to trust God. And then while you're waiting for that manifestation to occur, I would say continue to communicate. Continue to communicate because communication is such a big part of a marriage. And I'm like, every time we do this podcast, I'm like, why we keep talking about communication? Why we keep talking? Because it's a big part of being marriage, right? Because if you do not have communication, you are going to be lacking so much. So those would be my two things: continue to trust God, and to communicate as you wait for the manifestation of what you're believing God for. See, you saw I put that there, so you thought it was for me. But go ahead.
okay. So that's fine. I thought we were.
You're not gonna answer. You're not gonna have it.
No, you did a good job.
No.
You did a good job. I mean, I agree.
Okay.
Can I agree? So, as my wife was saying, what's very important is first to trust God. Anytime it said you're believing for manifestation of a breakthrough, so that sounds like those are big words for like a believer,
Yes.
right? So, for anyone who is looking for something to change in their marriage, right? Someone may be praying for something to change in their marriage. They may be believing for something to change in their marriage. And so I believe that it all has to start with a conversation with God, right? You have a conversation with God. That's called prayer. You talk to him, you let him know what you're praying about. Now, a lot of times, the funny thing is, we often pray that something will change with our spouse, but typically, that's not how God usually works. God usually wants to change something in you to allow you to create an atmosphere for something to change in your spouse, right? And
Absolutely.
so, one of the things that I've learned to pray for is, Father, help me to see some things from my wife's perspective so that the breakthrough that I'm looking for will actually manifest itself because I change what my focus is on. See, a lot of times we could be focused on the wrong thing. If we turn some focus to our own improvement and we pray about our own improvement, that can tend to lead to some things changing in our lives. Now, you mentioned like financial breakthrough and breakthrough in intimacy and um, just uh, breakthrough. Maybe it's in a career or profession or in the family, in the household with children. It could be a number of different things. But like you said, it always has to start with communication. I would say first communication is with God. You have to develop a relationship with him, trust him, and then also having that communication with one another. Because a lot of times there are what's called uh I'm gonna wrap it up, but a lot of times there's what's called um uncommunicated expectations,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have expectations for our spouse that we never really talk about. We just think that they're supposed to read our mind. And anytime you think somebody's supposed to read your mind when they are not a mind reader, you're actually putting them in
He is not a mind
a
reader.
prison. You're putting them in a prison, right? With no key. There's no way to get out of that because you can't read nobody's mind.
Yeah, I'm not a mind
You're
because that
definitely
really
not a mind
you
reader.
tell me I'm not a
So
mind.
it's better to talk
I'm not a
about
mind
it. It's
reader.
better to share your thoughts so that you two can grow together. All right, I'm done.
All right, so we're gonna put a time limit on these questions if that's okay with you. You the head, you're leading. I'm let you lead. Okay.
All right, let's go.
All right. So next question: is it okay to bring toys into the bedroom? Now, this is my thoughts on, is it okay to bring toys in the bedroom? The bedroom is undefiled, right?
That's what the
So
word
the
says.
word says that the bedroom is undefiled. So what you do in your bedroom is your business, right? So the only thing that I would say, that as far as toys, it must be a mutual agreement. Make sure that is a mutual agreement. Um, and make sure that you don't, because you don't want to force your spouse to do something that they don't want to do, right? You want to be in agreement with that, but you also need to know that um, introducing toys into the bedroom, right? It could be sort of a adverse effect to that, right? Because you want to introduce toys, you want to bring them into the bedroom. What about if uh you don't want to you don't want to be intimate, either spouse, right, don't want to be intimate, and so you've introduced these toys to the bedroom and you brought it into your whole situation, and so now the other spouse is like, hey, well, he don't want to do nothing, she don't want to do nothing, and then now let me revert to this toy that you have both introduced into your marriage, right? Which then in turn could turn into something else. So what you do in your bedroom is your business. But you know, I if you're looking to bring some toys in, just make sure that there are boundaries in place, that you communicate um why you are bringing them into the bedroom. That's my thoughts. What you got?
Like you said, I think it has to be something that's mutually agreed upon.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it it's something that should you should definitely have conversations about prior to it taking place, because you never want to put your spouse in a situation where they feel awkward
Hmm.
or they feel less than, because you don't want to communicate that they aren't meeting your need, um, sexually, emotionally, whatever it may be. And so the importance of having those conversations up front is to stress that, you know, is there something lacking? Is there not? Is there something that you need me to do that I'm not doing? Right? Or are you just trying to bring a little more excitement into the bedroom? So it's important that I would say that to have those conversations up front, because like you said, it could potentially be an adverse effect on the back end, when it's not discussed.
Yes, absolutely.
Before you read that next question, for those who are watching, feel free to comment. Feel free to send in your questions, and we will try to answer those as well. All right, go ahead, sweet.
Yeah, I agree.
So this question says, "What are some ways to keep your sex life exciting?" That's a good question. So I think it's important to um. So the first thing is, why would someone ask that question? the the possibility is that either there's some intimacy lacking, or some things may just have become stale, right? And so, as we, depending on the time you've been married, depending on uh, what you've done in previous relationships, like all that stuff comes into play, and it could potentially lead to some dissatisfaction in the bedroom, right? And so at times you may have to try to do something a little would be considered a little more exciting. But
I'm
what's the
sorry.
problem?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry because it was the first step was the question, but then when something was under it. Did you read that one? I'm sorry. I when I did it, I messed it up.
Lord help us get through this.
My fault. I'm trying to get your whole attention,
You
and
had my
you,
attention,
yeah,
but you
but
should have told me, like, look,
yeah,
I
I'm
messed it up.
sorry.
So
I
why you give
did.
it to me? You should have just read it.
That's true. I should have. I'm sorry.
See, y'all get the real deal tonight.
I should have.
Y'all get the
I
real
should
deal
have.
tonight.
And then I'm breaking your
And then,
whole. I know. I'm sorry.
yeah,
So okay. So I'm sorry. You was doing a good job. So okay. So what are some ways to keep your sex life exciting? And I messed up the, the question. And they said the reason for the question is that the older that you get, it seems like we are least interested in making love. But I also noticed that what used to turn us on may not anymore. So I know as we get older, and as you, I mean, listen, and you get into that menopausal stage, right? Or, and you feel like, wanting to be with your spouse or having sex with your spouse can be a little bit more difficult. And so you got to do you have to do, some more things to sort of like get you in the mood, right? And so, um, I would say, of course, communicate with your spouse. Let them know how you're feeling. If you're in menopause or whatever, let them know like this is how I'm feeling. I'm not really interested in, you know, being intimate as much because of this, right? So that they are aware. And then maybe you have to do some more things to sort of make it, more um exciting or to get you more involved. Uh, and of course, as time goes on, um, I, I guess it just depends on who you are. What used to turn you on may not. So what you think about that? What used to turn you on may not anymore.
I think that's possible. I think as you grow in your marriage, as you spend time together, of course, your love is for one another is supposed to grow. So that you're supposed to have a healthy dose of love in your marriage. However, over time, people's bodies change,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm,
so what may have initially attracted you to your spouse could potentially change over time, right? For a number of different reasons. It could change because of the lifestyle that they live, whether it's dieting, whether it's exercising, whether it's in our day and time, it might be some sort of surgical procedure, right? It could be a number of things that change in a relationship body wise. For guys, they get bigger, they might have a belly, right? Or they might lose their hair, right? Or they might have a whole lot of hair in places they never had hair before, right?
right.
So a lot of things can change over time. And
You might
so
not get that leg up like you used to.
you might have to learn how to start stretching, and you got to do that thing in advance.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is that a lot of things can change, which causes there to be the lack of attraction, or the attraction isn't as strong as it used to be. And so in those times and in those moments, I think it's very important for you to have those conversations with your spouse. And like we talked about a little while ago, the question was about toys, but you don't necessarily have to introduce toys. There are other things you can introduce. You can introduce massage, right? You can introduce stretching. You can introduce exercises. You can introduce different types of lingerie. It's a lot of different things that can be introduced into the bedroom to increase that excitement level. And then hopefully, because it's been communicated that, you know, I don't get there as fast as I used to, that the spouse is willing to take their time to get the excitement and the arousal to the point where both parties can enjoy uh intimacy in the bedroom.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. I didn't do a great job with these holding up these papers, and it was I just didn't. So next question, how to cope. Tips when you've grown fatigue of the work it takes to stay together. How to cope.
So what's the question? How do I cope? What's the how to cope?
How to cope when you grow fatigue. Listen, I'm just giving it
Okay.
to you the way I got it.
All right.
How to cope, or how to cope, or tips when you've grown fatigue of the work to take to stay together. So
Go ahead.
so okay. We like to say that marriage is for what? Grown folks,
Grown
right?
ups.
It's for grown ups. And so we have a faith-based marriage, right? And we believe that we seek the Father in all things. So I believe that I mean I haven't gotten to the um I have never gotten to the point where I felt fatigue um about our marriage. I've never gotten to that point, right? And then I had to wonder of, how does it take what it takes to stay together. So I think that, when you get married, you have to know that everything is not going to be peachy keen all the time, right? So there are going to be some moments when you may I guess feel what? You feel fatigue, you may feel like things look a certain kind of way, um and you may feel like you have to, how we're going to make this thing work. But marriage is work, period. It's work. And I think even when you are feeling fatigue, you still have to know that marriage is work, and you're going to have to put in the work. And if you feel like you're getting to a place and you're feeling like, oh, I'm tired, like this is too much, then you just have to get to a place where you just begin to seek the Father, I would say, and then see what may be going on with you, because a lot of times um, it may not be the spouse. Most times it's us, and we just have to figure out like what is causing us to feel this way. So you can answer. I was kind of all over with that, but
So, you know, because of the question, the answer is sort of limited because there could be a lot of different things that cause fatigue in a marriage. You know, is it your fatigue with trying to work with your spouse because they aren't reciprocating love? Are you fatigued with the circumstances of surrounding your marriage? Like maybe there's financial difficulty and you don't see your way out of it? Are you fatigued because you're in the house and you're taking care of the children and you're doing all the work around the house and you're helping that your spouse will contribute in some kind of way and they've yet to step up to do that, right? There are a number of things
yeah,
that
that's
could cause
true.
fatigue. And so I think what you said is something important. It's really important that you sit down and take some time to look within because your perspective about the situation is going to impact every action that you make and it's going to impact every relationship that you're in. And so if you are um, frustrated with the situation, right? The first thing that I suggest is that you look at ways to change your perspective on how you see the situation. I know that some people lean more toward a negative perspective and a negative side. Some people are more pessimistic than optimistic. However, I think that understanding that no situation is permanent gives some hope
Right.
that things can change.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, marriage is not easy. It requires work, and there's always a level of communication that has to take place, and it has to be effective. Like you may start in one place where it's one-sided, but you have to create a space in the atmosphere for um, equal communication to take place where you're not the only one that's talking, or you're not the only one that's running your mouth and yapping, because in situations like that
Well,
people tend to not hear, and when they don't hear there's no room or an outlet for change. And so it's important to create a space where communication can take place and you share, like, look, I'm in this thing, I want to be here, but I'm tired. What can we do to make this situation better? What
communicate.
do I need to do? Or express where you need help, but you have to do it in a way where that person can receive what you're saying and not necessarily feel attacked by what you're saying.
Yeah, that's good. Not receive what you're saying and not feel attacked by what you're saying. And that's good because there have been times that you may have said something to me and I may not have received it. I felt as if I was being attacked in my own mind. I had my own perspective of how I was receiving what you were saying, even though it was from a good place. So that's why communication is so important and communication is so powerful because even as you said, when you get to those places, when you're feeling fatigued, communicate that with your spouse so that he can know or so she can know that this is where I am, this is where I'm at. I'm overwhelmed with my children. I'm with the kids. I just need a break. Just communicate that with them, and just make sure that it's being communicated well. And even if you're the one that's on the receiving end of what they're trying to tell you, make sure that how you are um, taking it in, um, that you really try to rationalize it and not get caught up in your own feelings because it's easy to feel as if you're being attacked and it's not attack. As you always say, I'm not against you. You're for me, right? You're not against me. We're on the same team. We're on the same side, right? So it's that's very important. That's good. Next question. What do you do if your spouse values time with the guys or girls over quantity time with their spouse?
So is it quantity time or quality time?
It's a quantity.
Oh, so they want more time. All right.
Well, let's address quantity and quality
Okay.
because some people may not be getting any time. Let's talk to the ones that may not be getting no time and the one may need more time. So, and sometimes you may be getting time and feel like you're not getting nothing, but that's, how we can get.
So what was
Yeah.
the question again? What do you
What do you, what do you do if your spouse values time with the guys or girls over quantity time, or I'm going to say quantity or quality time with their friends? Number one, your spouse always should come first, right? They should always come first. Even though, as a man and as a woman, we do need our outlets. Number one, we do. You do need time with your boys. You need time with your girls. I have time when I spend with my girlfriends. But even before I do that, I always consult you before doing. We always consult each other. So, having quality time is paramount in a marriage, in any marriage. No, my girlfriends don't override you. Your friends sure don't override me, right? So we have a mutual agreement and we communicate those things, especially me. I listen, I'm gonna get my time. I'm if I gotta come take my time, right? Even if I gotta come and invade your space. But I will. Um, so my answer is that no, your friends, your boys, your girls should not they should not take precedence over your spouse. Never. And that's
I agree. I think priorities are important. It's important that priorities are lined up. You know, in this household, we say God first, she's next, and then children, and then everything else, right? But I want you to think about it like this: anything you build requires time, right? If you're building a business, it requires time. If you're building a career, it requires time. If you're building a relationship, it's going to require time. And so that means you have to be willing to invest the time necessary to build it, especially if you want it to be successful. Now, I don't know anyone who wants to be in a career that's not successful. I don't know anyone who wants to have a business that's not successful. I don't really think I know anyone who wants to be in a relationship that's not successful and is not progressing forward. And so, if that's what you want, then you need to be aware that there's what's called a return on investment. But you don't get the return on your investment unless you invest, right? And time is a
yes.
commodity and it's necessary to invest time. So if you're trying to build a marriage, then there is a time that's necessary to invest in it. Now, we have to be willing to communicate with one another because some careers require some people to spend time away from home. But the question wasn't about careers, the question was about hanging out, right? So we're talking about hanging out. If it's about hanging out with the fellas, sometimes you gotta be like, look, dude, I gotta go because I need to spend some time with wifey, right? Because she needs my time. And you have to be willing to say that to your fellas, and they should understand that, especially if they want the best for you, right? And so
Facts.
it's important to have people around you that want the best for you. And they want the best for you, they gonna want to make sure that you're not getting the blues at home,
That's right.
right?
And another thing is who are your girls and who are your guys? Are they single girls or are they married girls? Are they married men or are they single men? That makes a world of difference. Because if you are hanging out with you're married and you're hanging out with single I'll just say single women, right? If I'm hanging out with my girls and they're single, they don't know half of the time about what it is, especially if they've never been in marriage. So they don't know half of the time about consulting my spouse, prioritizing my spouse. So that's all they sometimes they have the perspective of a single person. And so when especially for a guy, he like oh my wife, I gotta go home and spend some time with my wife, and guys be like, oh, what they say, you got the ball and chain, and they might joke and all of that stuff. Oh, you gotta answer to your wife. No, I'm not answering to my wife, I'm not answering um to my husband, but I'm being mindful of them, I'm being respectful of them, and me spending time with my spouse matters. Her or him desire me to spend more time with me matters. So everything should matter, and your friends should matter. And to be honest, I don't even know like if I have any like I think that as we gotten married, we have connected with married people. I haven't singled out any single people. Well, ain't no single woman. Women need to be hanging around me, no way. I guess that, but that's my opinion. Like all of that. But who you hanging around with?
Who do I hang around?
No, I know who you hang around with.
Uh, oh, you're wrapping up the question. Okay, that let's go ahead and move on.
Who you don't have nothing to say? Quick, please.
I said it. You added to the end of what I said.
Oh, you did.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So next question: how do you cope when you or your partner are growing in different directions? Spiritually, and these are just examples, spiritually, financially, socially, all of that, right? You got you spiritually, let's use spiritually, right? So when we first got married, we both were saved, right? But you were at a level that I was not at. And you were praying for some things to change. You were, I wasn't on your level, but you had a desire for me to be better, right? And so when we get married, a lot of times the person may not necessarily be where you are or where you would want them to be. And so I think that if you are um, feeling like y'all are growing in different directions, I think that you have to get to a place where you find like like I guess a even ground where you realize that hey, I may be at this place, she's not here yet, and that don't mean that she's not gonna get there, but you still can have hopes for them to be there. But in the meantime, it's like, oh, you don't down them for not being where you are, right? But you pray for where you would like to see them um be, right? Because we all want our spouse to grow and to be better. And so I think that if you are, because the word says how can two walk together unless they agree, right? And so when you are with your spouse, you shouldn't be growing apart, you should be growing together. And so if you are growing, going in different directions, because of your, because spiritually there, you out drinking every time you turn around, you drinking. I don't drink, right? But you got a problem because you drink, or you got a problem because I don't drink. So where's the even ground as far as, well, I don't drink, you respecting the fact that I don't drink, I'm praying that you stop drinking. So it has to be like a midway, or like as to even when you're feeling these ways, you get a new career, and all of a sudden you got this new career, you making all of this money now, right? And uh you sort of on your high horse, and now you on your high horse now. I'm just going. You on your high horse, and now I'm trying to. Now you mad because I'm not where you are, or your mindset is that, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and you're not on that same level. I think that if you are growing into different directions, you have to find a way to get on the same path. And I don't think, as for me, I don't think that that's something that you should you should down your spouse about, but you are to pray for them and pray that things change in some kind of way. Here, look at that, please.
So the only thing I'll add is that we may not grow at the same rate, but we should still both be growing, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to recognize that that level of maturity requires patience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so as a spouse, if I see that my spouse is not necessarily where I want them to be or I think they should be, then it does require prayer, but it also requires some patience on my part
Yes.
because I have to give them the space and the time to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, like you said, how can two walk together unless they agree? Typically, two people can't walk together if they're not in agreement because that means they're going in two different directions. And so it's important that there is common ground, but it's also important to understand like, look, we may not be growing at the same pace, but it's important to me, and this is a conversation you should have with your spouse. We may not be growing at the same pace, but it's important to me that there's still growth taking place. So then the question needs to be asked. So what areas does growth need to take place? And then that's an area for conversation to take place. So, I'm hoping to see some changes in this area. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that's something you're willing to work toward? Or is it something you're not willing to work toward? And if you're not willing to work toward, okay, how do we find some level of agreement where we're both still moving forward together and we're not growing apart? But when you don't have those conversations, and when, like you said, you hold it over someone's head or you put them down as if they're not on your level, then you create an atmosphere of separation taking place. And anytime separation takes place, then there's always the potential for things to end. And it's the potential for things to end in a manner that is destructive to everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things need to be considered up front. Like, number one, do I want this to end? And the question is, if I want it to end, why do I want it to end? And if I don't want it to end, okay, what can I do to prevent it from ending? And sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice some things to give someone some time to grow,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that conversation, not only conversation, but communication has to take place. And people have to be willing to share their thoughts, their expectations, and allow their spouse to do the same. And then create a space where there's mutual agreement so that you can grow together.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We have one another question is what does it mean to wash what does it mean to wash your spouse in the word? You do
All
that
right.
all the time.
Yeah. So I think it's important to, number one, um, for yourself to spend time in the word for your own personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also important to be able to encourage your spouse with the word, right? And so it's important to understand the difference between washing and manipulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to manipulate with you with the word. That means I'm not trying to present the word to you in a way that makes you feel condemned or to feel like you're not good enough
Right.
or to make you feel less worthy or less valued. I'm giving you the word to reaffirm who you are,
Mm-hmm.
to encourage who you are, to make you, to try to motivate you or to inspire you to feel valued and worthy, right? And so I think it's always about the intent behind the use of the word.
Mm-hmm.
If my intent is to harm you, then that's not washing. That's manipulation,
Right.
right? But if my intent is to help you get to a place where you are encouraged, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see the potential for growth, or you see the potential for things to change, then that's actually washing, right? Because washing has a purpose.
Yes, I love. I think you wash me. I use that a lot. That you wash me. In a word, there may be many times I may be feeling discouraged, and I feel you will I say wash me in the word with scripture, and you will give me scripture to build me up, to help me um in that moment where I feel that um I'm lacking something. So, and I think that that's important for um, your spouse to do that. And not only you do that too, most times you do it. Mine's may look a different way, and then sometimes I may say something encouraging to you as well that may lift you up. But it's a scripture that talks about that talks about washing you in the word. And I have to see, let me see.
Well, while you look for that, right, I just want to add this. The act of washing someone is a very intimate process, right? Because anytime you wash someone, just naturally, you have to be close to them. They have to bear themselves before you, right? Meaning that they are vulnerable. And you have to be careful in how you handle the vulnerability of that person. And
Mhm.
so I think that's the importance of understanding the value of the word, because you see where someone is vulnerable and you care for that vulnerability. And so you're willing to take the time to get close, to be intimate, and to help them get those areas where they may not be able to reach for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love when you wash me with the word. I just did. So Ephesians 5, uh, 25 through 6, it says, Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with the water through the word. And so husbands are to love their wife like Christ loves the church, right? And so husbands are to love us, and why as wives we are to respect our spouse, right? And so that's really a part of your assignment to wash your wife in the word, to wash her. That's a part. That's a part of the your assignment as a husband to wash her. So when she doesn't feel um a certain kind of way, get some scripture. Find some scripture um to build her up, to lift her up, right? To encourage her in some kind of way. But and that'll allow your spouse to your wife to even see you in a different way. I mean, to me, there is nothing more sexy to me than when my husband wash me with the word. Like that is like sexy to me. I can just get with it. And it's like you do it on it's not just something like I don't you shouldn't have to beg your spouse for it. That's something that you should be willing to give them. You want to do it. You want to wash them in the word. And so for me, like that is sexy to me. That you turn me on like yeah. So I am so
All right.
here for
So,
all of the washing with the word
all
that
right.
may lead to some washing and some other things, right? But I love that about you. I really do. So thank you for washing me with the word.
So, what about when you wash, but you don't want to be washed?
And yes, and yes, that's so true. Sometimes he try to wash me in the word, and I don't want to be washed. I don't want to be bothered. But then So there will be some times where they will try to wash you, and because you're in a space, right? And you really don't want to receive it in the moment because of the headspace that you're in. But most times when I do get like that, um, when I may not want to hear it, I do think about it afterwards. And I usually come and tell you, yeah, I heard you, and yeah. So I don't do that often. I don't do it too often.
I was-
I mean, it's true. Well, thank you for
yeah,
bringing
I
that
was just
up.
bringing it up because you said it's so sexy.
It is when I wanted to,
Exactly where you wanted to
when
be.
it's working for my good. So, I mean,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So, sometimes I don't, but for the most part, I do. I do receive it. I, I, I'm grateful for your effort. So it's the effort, even if they don't receive it sometimes or receive right away. It's the effort in trying to wash me. And so, as putting in the effort of doing what the scripture says.
I can appreciate that.
So it's the effort for me. So yeah. Okay, so another questions we're gonna try to get through some more. What do you think about doing a couples group session where there is an instructor that could give you different positions, something like a sex therapist? I'm gonna get that to you because you can get a book and tell you how to do positions.
Yeah, so I nowadays people create environments for therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a group session. Now the question is, how many people in this group? Are you just with your spouse, or are you going between partners, or what?
With this group.
Because I've seen some, I've seen some things where you have like a group stretching session, right, with married couples,
Mm-hmm.
right, where there is the opportunity for them to get close, to stretch in different ways, to sort of increase the adrenaline, right, and that intensity, to bring some intimacy into their marriage. Um, and so I, like I said, I think the environment is important. I think what happens in that space, and I think it has to be in a room where, there is trusted people. Like there are times when we do our marriage retreats where it's not technically a group therapy session or a sex therapy session, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we do create a space and environment for married couples to enjoy the company of their spouse in the environment with other married couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we not exchanging spouses. We ain't doing that,
Mm-mm.
but there's the opportunity to get close. It may be a dance, right? It may be a hug and not letting go for a period of time, right? It may be a trust exercise where you stand behind me and I have to close my eyes and fall back and trust that you're going to be there to catch me, right? Those things create intimacy. Trust creates intimacy because when you don't trust someone, it's difficult to be intimate with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are different things that can be done to create greater intimacy in a relationship in a group setting, but
The group setting has to make sense.
it's
Eh,
more of me focused on you and not focused on everybody else in the room.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Or seeing them, because see, this is the thing. if you are doing like in this group setting and you're seeing other couples do certain things like in demonstration, then you open the door for something else because you may be seeing that other partner or somebody else's partner doing something, and then that lust begins to come in, and see, then you open the door to something else to form. So then you're inviting sin in once you do that. So I would say go on and create your own stuff in your own bedroom. Like you said, I mean, you can find things, things to do. You can find things to do. It's Yeah, you can find some things. Massages, like get some oil, rub them down with some oil. Because if you get some oil and you rub them in the right spot, or you rub her in the right, you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta listen, or a nice old a hug, or just a back massage, a foot massage, which you do not like to do. He don't do feet.
Why are you putting my business out in the street?
You don't do feet. He don't like my
I,
feet,
from
y'all.
time to time, I rub your feet.
Now he don't not like my feet, but I'm okay with that. Except for when I want to when you to massage my feet. But you can there are ways to create what you want it to be. You just have to be willing to put in the time to do it. So I wouldn't, for me, I wouldn't want to do a therapy session like that. I For me, I wouldn't. So, but to each his own. Just be mindful of why you're doing and what you're looking to receive from it, because you don't want to open the door for something else to for other things, where you begin to looking at other um husbands or wives and begin to be turned on by what you see them doing, because that's a whole nother situation. Okay. So next question. Um, what would you say to a spouse whose spouse receive who re, what would you say to a spouse whose spouse refuses to go to counseling? Doctor, what would you say?
What would I say to a spouse who refuses to go to
Right.
counseling?
So I'm assuming that one spouse thinks that they need it, and then the other spouse is saying they don't want to go. They don't want to go.
Well, I mean, I think it helps to know what the counseling is in reference to. But, here again, we talk about communication. The What's the purpose of going to counseling? Are you going to counseling because you think that the counselor is going to take your side, or do you want counseling because there's some areas you really need help in? But a lot of times people, they always looking at the spouse, like they always want the spouse to change, and they don't look themselves in the mirror. And so my question goes to, like, what's the purpose of the counseling? And are you willing to do the work that you need to do to get better? Or are you just trying to change that person that you married? I'm just saying. That's the
Right.
person you chose. That's the person you chose to marry.
Well, it depends on what's going on, as you
That's what I
said,
said.
but also your spouse feelings should matter. And so if they're
Which one?
asking you either or,
Right.
the
So
husband or the wife,
if you want to go and I don't want to go, does my feelings matter?
the one who want to go, because apparently the one who want to go for a reason. And so I would like to think that, because that means something to me, that you will be willing to just go for the sake of caring about how I feel, because you don't want to be in a marriage where it's always one sided. You should sometimes a marriage is about sacrifice, and sometimes we're going to have to do some stuff that we don't want to do. And if I'm willing to put my feelings aside just because it's going to make you feel comfortable, make you feel a certain kind of way, then I'm gonna be willing to do it. And you would do the same thing as well. But sometimes we can get to a place where we can just become selfish, and it's me, me, me is about what I want. And we can't, in a marriage, it's never about me, 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 and what I want. It's always about us. It's always because we are one. And so if we are walking to being one and being and on one accord, if we walking to be in agreement, then if I have to sacrifice and do it for you, then I'm gonna do it all day long, every day. Well, maybe not every day, but I'm gonna be willing to do it. That's just, and you would too. We're gonna go to 8:15. We got a few more. We can answer a few more questions. We're gonna answer them. We're gonna answer them quickly. What what I saw something about prayer. Do you think prayer is a how important is prayer together, praying together as a married couple? I think praying together as a married couple is very, very important. I think it puts you in on a one accord. It allows you to um be in agreement with what the other person is believing for. It brings you to it brings a sense of um closeness. It brings intimacy. That can bring a place of intimacy, right? And so I think prayer is vital in a marriage. um Me and we pray, and this was something that we started probably what over the last month. A lot of times I'm praying, you're praying for me, but we started to be intentional about actually praying together. That was something we did when we first married, but it fell off as we went. But we've been intentional um lately, right? To make sure that we get up on Mondays and we pray on Mondays and Thursdays twice a week. That's has been our regimen, right? To make sure that we are praying, make sure that we are um on one accord. And so I think it's very important. That was long. I'm sorry. Did I answer? Okay. So spouses, or if you're not praying with your spouse, pick a day out of the week and pray with your spouse.
But I
Set
will
that
say this
time.
before you go to the next
Uh-huh.
question. We always want to be mindful of the intent and doing things from a pure heart,
Right.
right? So when you pray with your spouse, don't use that opportunity to try to suggest changes that they should make in their life. you know, that's not, you like you praying like, Father, please help her to stop eating all the ice cream, because she putting on pounds because she want to eat all the ice cream. Father, please help her to get home and cook me dinner like she knows she should, because she know I work all day and
Right. We're
that's
not
not what
manipulation and
prayer is.
prayer.
We talked about praying with and for your spouse. You want to pray the best for them, right? So it's like, Father, you know, help them to grow closer to you. If your spouse grows closer to him, then there's some things that he's going to share with them that's going to cause them to make some changes in their life. But you got to play the long game. It's not about those short, temporary type of requests or responses, because usually that's just a form of manipulation, and anytime you try to manipulate somebody into doing something you want them to do, there are always repercussions on the back end from
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. What to do if your spouse is in competition with you?
it. What should you do if your spouse is in competition with you?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting question because I think that there are some deeper issues involved in that. The Bible says the two shall become one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are one, then that means I can't compete with you. We compete together. And so it's not about who's making more money. It's not about who has the bigger bank account. It's not about, you know, who's the best this or who's the best that. We're trying to do this thing together. We're trying to grow together. We're trying to make an impact together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what do? You have to recognize that okay, we need to talk because I see that you want to be better than me, and if you feel like you're not better than me, then it's gonna cause problems in our relationship and in our marriage. And so that's something that you don't have control over, right? So one of the things I think is very important is to understand, yes, you are in a marriage, but you don't have control over your spouse. And so because you can't control them, you have to understand who holds the heart of the king in his hand. And that doesn't matter if they're the king or the queen. God holds their heart in their hand and he could turn it any way he please. So when you see that, those are conversations that you take into your own personal prayer closet
Yes.
and say, Father, I see this is what's going on in my household. How do I move forward? What do I do personally to change this? What can I do in myself to get better? How can I create an environment where it's not one of competition, but one of collaboration? Show me how to do that so that we both grow together
Mm.
versus at each other's throats.
Yes.
And so I think that that's understanding that you cannot control your spouse and understanding who does ultimately have all the power and putting it in his hands. But a lot of the things we've said today has leaned on prayer and communication. And that's a major, it has to be a major part of marriage because it's not easy. Marriage is a hard thing
It's always work.
because anytime you're trying to take two forces
Mm-hmm.
and bring them together, there's going to be some confrontation. There's going to be some opposition. There may be some bumping heads at times, but it can be done. But it's with the soft heart. And so the only way they have that heart soft is if God does work on it. And he's the one that holds that heart in his hands.
Yes, absolutely. Um, I think aesthetics. This is gonna be the last question for right now. So we probably have to do a part two. Um, well, not necessarily a part two. There's yeah. Um, oh, gaining weight and hair loss. So what do you do? Okay, so when you have a spouse that's losing weight, I mean that's losing their hair, they got this big patch in the middle, and they got all this hair on the side, and they thinking it look good. Or you got one spouse that gained all this weight, and now they've gained so much weight that they don't look like themselves, right? what do you do in those instances? Now, I believe that we should always be, um, we should keep ourselves up as wives and as husbands. I want to look good for you, and you want to look good for me. And I want you to look good for me, and you want me to look good for you, right? So, over the last 22 years, I have picked up some pounds. I have. I've been on a diet since we've been together, like 50 of them. But it's still my desire to make sure that I'm looking good for you, even when I put on some pounds, right? But putting on some pounds, but then is different than becoming obese in the relationship, right? Where you have become maybe unattractive. What do you do in that situation? What do you do in that situation? And I'm gonna let you address the weight thing, okay? I'm gonna get that to you. So I'm gonna take this hair thing. Now, my husband, I love his bald head. But before he had this bald head, he had hair that was on the side, and this was like really thin in the middle. And it wasn't given what it should have been given, right? So
Oh,
he was trying to hold on to it, right? But
oh
he,
my goodness. Hold on. You gotta paint the picture because that picture you just painted is not accurate.
right, you sweetie, you had hair, you had a little bit of, you had this hair around here, and then you had this really low, like no hair right there, and you was
No,
looking,
no, no hair.
you was
No, come
really
on now. We're gonna
looking,
have to pull up some pictures for these
you
people
was
because I ain't never had no hair all around the sides and like no
you
hair
was
right
you
here.
was remember that show where they be like ding ding.
What?
Remember where they be like, what's the Larry and Mo, and they be like
The Three
the
Stooges?
Three Stooges, yes. And remember the one that didn't have the hair in the middle, but they had the
You
hair on
are
the
absolutely
side.
cold blooded. That is not true. It ain't never been that. You got me walking
So,
around like George Jefferson.
but
That's not
right,
accurate.
so for a little while you was trying to hold on to
But
it.
that's not
It's
accurate.
not maybe not as
Yeah,
accurate, but
yeah,
you was
exaggerate.
trying to hold onto that hair, but you didn't want to really let go of it, what you had, because you didn't really feel like, you was ready. But it came a point where you were ready, I was ready, and we was both in agreement. And here we have it, a bald head that I just love now. But I think that that was something, I think I was like, it's time. It was time, right? And just like it was time for you to let go of that and just get a bald head. And it was time. And sometimes we may gain weight. I'm gonna just go ahead into it. We may gain weight as women. I'm gonna speak for myself. Gain weight, and when I gain weight, I'm just a whole mess, right? I'm just a mess, and it's uncomfortable for me. So I would like to think that you may feel a certain kind of way, but because you're a wise man, you're not going to be like, oh, you fat. But I already know how I feel. So, and you be like pretty fat and healthy. What? No, pretty fat and tempting. That's what you say.
That's not
What you say? What you say?
PHAT.
What? What's that mean?
Pretty hot and tempting.
Pretty hot and
There you
tempting.
go.
Right. What I said
Yeah.
fat. Pretty hot and tempting. Yes. But, PHAT, fat. So that's always usually his response, but he's never told me. But I think a lot of times we shouldn't need our spouse to have to tell us that we've gained weight, because you already know you gained weight. You already know that you didn't triple your size, right? You really do. And I don't think that is fair for, even though you're going to gain weight over time, because our bodies change, right? We age and we gain weight. But I think it's unfair to the other spouse to, um, become something, and we not recognize you, like your face, because of all of the weight that you gain, and it becomes unattractive, right? So I think in that regards, if you got a problem with it, then do some things where you may be able to work out with your spouse. Let's go to the gym. I've been trying to get you to go to the gym and you have not gone to the gym. But anyway, let's go to the gym. Let's work out together. Let's go for a walk together. Come on, let's go do some setups together. Like let's do something together to engage so that I can contribute to um either what I'm having an issue with or what you're having an issue with. So I can make you feel better.
So you can make me feel better.
If you, I mean, like,
So first of all, let's go back. Let's go back. Let's rewind this because when you met me, I could see how things changed. Because when you met me, I did have a head full of locks, right?
mm,
My hair was down my back. It was probably the length of your hair. And so I'm sure that it was a big difference when I cut my locks off and I started to rock like a regular. No, that wasn't
well,
even
you
a
took
regular. It was like a taper or whatever.
right, but remember you cut your locks off because it was thinning, right?
No, that's not why I cut my locks off. I cut my locks off because I was planning on applying to medical
Oh
school,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
and I had a conversation with a physician.
I,
At that
I
time,
remember.
he said, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think you're going to be prejudged before you go into the room, before you open your mouth because of your hairstyle." And
Yeah,
this was a black physician.
I
And
remember.
so I took his opinion, his advice, and I made the decision to cut my hair. I remember when I cut it, Caleb, he didn't even recognize me, right? Because he was used to the long hair,
Yeah, but then it
right?
was still thin in the middle, right?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Come on now. My hair didn't start thinning until going through medical
Oh yeah,
school.
that's true. That's true. You're right. But I'm still saying that it still had thinned out, sweetie. I
It
remember that
started
picture
thinning, but
when you
you try
had.
to paint the picture like I was like Mo, like I was curly or something. Come on now, that's not even that wasn't even realistic.
I'm not talking about when you was
I had a
medical.
low cut.
I'm because I
I
remember
had a low cut.
match
It
day.
was very low,
And you had
and I
all that
had
hair.
hair.
Yes, you
Yes,
had a lot
thank
of
you.
hair. But as he had a lot of hair, y'all, he had a
It,
lot of hair.
I
But
cut it
as
low,
right, but as
and then
time, it must. What was it? Medical school? You think it was that made? Well, any okay. Go
can I
ahead. I'm
finish
sorry.
talking
Go
to the
ahead.
people?
All right.
Can I have the conversation with the people? You
Okay.
had your turn.
All right. It's
You
8:20.
didn't painted this picture that I was this curly Mo and what was the other one named Larry, right? Anyway, to get back to the um the weight thing, I think that aesthetics are important because of course I want people. First of all, I want you to be as beautiful as I see you, right? Now that does change over time, but it's my job, it's my responsibility to try to encourage you to always make you feel, even in the changes, that you're still beautiful. Now, if it's necessary to work out together to help you get to a place where you're healthy and flexible and able to move around without pain, then yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. But that my sole intent can't be I'm gonna try to not make her fat. Like no, that's not gonna work,
Right. No, I'm just saying, just
right?
doing little things to.
So there are little things that we can do, but you try to make it seem like you've been trying to ask me to go to the gym and all that. Yes, you have, but when I'm like, hey, sweetie, come on, let's do this. Oh, I don't want to do that,
Because you want to do it after I didn't ate, after I'm tired. You want to ask me all this after I don't feel like it.
and that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah. I want you to plan it out though. I want you to say, come on, we're gonna go to the gym tomorrow morning. We're gonna go at this time, but not after I done ate. Well, give me 10. Like,
Give me 10.
all right,
But that's, I mean, the whole point is that we work together,
okay.
and it's a matter of communicating with one another. And if you communicate that you're unhappy in a certain area, yes, it's my responsibility to try to help you not feel diminished or devalued and to encourage you and then hopefully to help you get to a place. But your happiness is never going to be based on me. You always are responsible for your own happiness. And so that's my belief. And I think we've made it to the end for tonight. We're going to wrap this thing up.
We didn't
Hope
make all questions, but we will keep these questions for. There's a lot of questions.
so. Hope we didn't bore you with our stories, with our laughter, with our love. This is Richer or Poor Marriage Podcast, where we are contributing to the health and wealth of marriages. Be blessed, fam.
Yes.